I don't think you understand. Like, he's been killed, and that was a punch in the gut to me. It just completely took the wind out of me. And most people, like when they have a near death experience, they talk about like when their life flashes before their eyes, their whole life from their childhood all the way through. They have that. My life flashed the opposite way. It flashed forward.
A man dies two deaths,
Yeah, yeah,
when he passes away and when his name is spoken for the last time.
exactly. My brother's story is going to be just as dead as he is, and it'll be gone. Nobody will remember him. And so I was like, yep, that's the mission now.
Roll one, scene one.
Welcome to Operation Onward podcast. Today we've got Army veteran, Gold Star brother, host of the Drive On podcast, and just all around veteran advocate, Mr. Scott DeLuzio. Scott, welcome to the show today, man.
Really glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I've actually been looking forward to it for a little bit now, and it's yeah, I think we're gonna have a good time here.
It's a fun time, man. So, Army veteran,
Hmm.
um, let's kind of rewind.
Sure.
Tell me about early life, Scott, and what led you to serve in the Army.
Yeah, sure. So my family growing up were super patriotic. My folks, taught us to, kind of look up to, first responders, the military as like those were the Michael Jordans in our house. Like that was the folks that we were looking up to. So, um, for me, anyways, like that was kind of like a big thing. And then, um, fast forward, I'm in college and 9/11 happens while I was in college, and at that point I'm like, nobody does this
Yeah.
kind of crap to us. So I'm ready to check out of college and just go join the army, like right at that moment. But then I kind of slept on it because I realized that's kind of a big decision, to just go and throw away a college career to, um, you know, go fight in the army, which nothing wrong with that, but decided to sleep on it and decided, if I was to do that, I probably wasn't going back to college. That's just my personality. It's like if I didn't finish the thing I started, I'm not going back to it. So um, I said, I only got a little bit left of college. Let me just finish this out, and then I'm sure there's still gonna be some fighting going on when I'm done here, and I can go check into that. So graduated college, and my younger brother, uh, at that time, he was going to Norwich University up in Vermont. It's a military school where ROTC started and all that. So he was a cadet there, not in the military at all at that point, but one of his buddies up there was in the Vermont Guard, and said, "Hey, why don't you come check out a drill and just check it out. No obligation, no pressure, or anything like that." And so he goes and he checked it out, and I guess he got hooked. He's like, "Yep, I'm joining.
This is my life.
It's my life now. This is what I'm doing." So he did. He signed up, and all of a sudden, my little brother went from the kid that I used to beat up in the backyard when we were kids to now he's one of these superheroes that I looked up to like my whole life. And so I was like, I was just like super proud of him. I was probably to the point where I was annoying talking to other people about like how proud I was of him and everything like that. But um, so he went off and did that, and I still haven't enlisted, haven't done anything like that yet. Um, and about a year after he joined, I started hearing these reports in the news that the military was struggling to meet their recruiting numbers, and I was like, where the hell were all these people from after 9/11? We were ready to go kick some ass, but
Yeah.
that now they're struggling to, there's only a few years later, like after 9/11, and like, where are all these people? And I realized, holy crap, I'm one of those people. Like, I was ready to drop out of school right then, and I still haven't done anything. I'm like, oh, I'm still young enough, I'm still capable of serving, so why not serve? And so I called up my brother and said, hey, I'm thinking about joining, talk me out of it. And so he gave me all the reasons. Hey, it's a dangerous job. You could get killed or injured, or all these things. I was like, yeah, I know that stuff. Like, give me some other reasons. Like, he did a terrible job at talking me out of it. So, um, I think later that week or the next week, I walked into a recruiter's office. Probably was the easiest sell he ever had because I basically said, "Just where do I sign?" Yeah, and I think I was too overeager because he was like, "No, you got paperwork and all that stuff. You got to get together before we can sign you up." Um, once I brought that stuff back in, I was good to go and I signed up. So, you know, looking at like how I got there, like as a kid, my brother and I, like, we would see the made for TV version of Top Gun, and we would like be sitting on the couch with all the pillows on the floor and stuff, and we'd be like ejecting out into the pillows on the floor, and like that was just like how we just you know we kind of envisioned that kind of life for ourselves, I guess, and I know the movies kind of glamorize things, but that's all we had to go off of at the time, and so we kind of followed that path, I suppose.
So you decided to follow your younger brother.
Yeah.
What year was that that you
Yeah, so he
enlisted?
joined in 2004 and I joined about a year later in 2005. So,
2005.
yeah. So that was still early enough on in all the combat that was taking place. He actually was deployed to Iraq, Ramadi in 2006. Early 2006, while I was still in basic training, he was there, and he would write letters home, and just say, "Man, this is hell.
Yeah.
This is no joke." And he was definitely a little bit different when he came back. I mean, still it was the same guy, but you could tell there was some stuff that was still there that really bothered him. So um, can't blame him. I mean, go through hell like that. Like you hear about other folks talking about that same time period in the same area. The Jocko podcast, like people
Yeah.
talking about that same. That's when he was there and
Yep.
during that same push in 2006, and it's just a rough time, and so they saw a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then yeah, so kind of fast forward a little bit here. So I joined, went through basic training and all that, and then it was just pretty much back to normal life. Because as a National Guard soldier, you have your civilian job, civilian life, and everything, and you just go back to work. And it's basically the same thing as before you left. The only difference is you got a weekend tied up every month doing army training.
Right.
Um, and then 2 weeks a year, usually during the summer, we'd go off someplace and do that kind of training. But it was really back, kind of almost back to normal. And um, until it wasn't, until we got orders for deployment, and
Yeah.
that I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here.
No, I mean, so you both are serving together. 2010 rolls around.
Yeah,
Um, President Obama stands up in front of the West Point graduates and says, "We're sending 45,000 troops to Afghanistan. Uh, it's the surge."
yeah,
And and you and your brother were part of that surge.
yeah,
Um, when did you find out that that you both were going to Iraq or going to Afghanistan at the same time?
yeah. So we found out kind of like mid 2009, I think. Somewhere around there that we're deploying. Um, and I forget which one of us found out first, but then the other one found out, and we're like, "Wait a minute, both going at the same time? Hold up." Wasn't there a movie like Saving Private Ryan where like this isn't supposed to happen? But actually it does happen quite a bit. The unit I served in, we had several sets of brothers in the same company. My brother's unit was the same way. They had some brothers in that unit too, and it actually happens, I believe, more often with National Guard soldiers because if you think about it, National Guard pulls from that local
That
community.
community,
Exactly. So if
right?
you got two brothers who wants to serve, they're going to probably be in the same unit, and so that's what happened with us. Um, Now, a little different with us because he was in the Vermont Army National Guard. I was in the Connecticut Army National Guard. But both of our units fell under the same brigade, and that whole brigade was being deployed at the same time, which I believe was one of the biggest deployments of National Guard soldiers since World War II.
Wow.
It was, I think, somewhere between like 4 and 5,000 troops were deployed at the same time during this deployment. So it was a big push, and like you said, President Obama had um, you know, 45,000
45,000. Yep,
troops were going over there around that time. So we were part of that. We're probably what 10% of that.
yeah,
Um, and so it was a big part of that push, and there was a lot of fighting going on in that time period.
there was.
There's a lot of unfortunately a lot of people didn't make it home. That year was the worst as far as combat deaths and in Afghanistan,
It
anyways.
was, yeah, 2010.
That was just such a terrible year for us, but we did our job. We went over there and did what we signed up for.
When you, uh, when you got there, when you arrived, what was the mission?
Yeah.
What was your company's mission?
Yeah, so our mission was we were stationed about 2 miles from the Pakistan border, and there's a route that goes from Pakistan into Afghanistan. And Afghanistan being a landlocked country, it's not getting any cargo ships pulling up to offload any cargo, but all of the military supplies that were not flown in were offloaded in Pakistan and put on trucks and driven in. So about 80% of them came through our area. And so our job was to secure the border area, make sure that those vehicles were able to get through unhindered, and also check for people who were smuggling things across the border, whether it was explosives or firearms or whatever the case may be, any kind of weapons that could cause harm to us directly because we're right there, or be brought in to go harm somebody else somewhere else in the country. We were kind of like that first line of defense for Afghanistan, um, and so it was a really difficult job because thousands of people were crossing that border back and forth. The way it was described to me is that the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan and probably other places around the country was drawn in in the locals' mind pretty arbitrarily. It doesn't really mean the border between those countries don't really mean a whole lot to them.
Right.
They look at it kind of like as if someone was to draw a line like down the middle of this room right now, and you're in Pakistan, I'm in Afghanistan. I don't really care.
Doesn't mean anything to
It's
the
still gonna
tribal area.
yeah, I'm still gonna walk across the table and the other side of the table and shake your hand after this thing's done. I don't really care that there's an imaginary line drawn on the ground. So people are crossing between this border constantly, and it it got really difficult because it's like who do you search? Who are you looking for? Who do you randomly pull aside? Women, children, like military age males, like who are you really looking for? And you kind of have to look for a mix of people, and stopping vehicles as well, searching them. There's one time we pull the vehicle over, just random search, and ask the guy to pop the trunk, check in the trunk. Inside the trunk, and mind you, this is in Afghanistan in the summer, so it's probably 120 plus degrees or whatever. In the trunk, there's a dog. No air conditioning in this car, no anything like that. This dog is just in the trunk. He's panting, and he looks like he's near death. And the guy gets out of the car and he asks me through my interpreter for a bottle of water. He saw that we had water there. And so I went over, I grabbed a bottle of water, and I took my knife and I stabbed it in the cap of the bottle. And I walked over to his dog and I sprayed the water in the dog's mouth. I'm like, no way are you
It's
getting
like,
this
"You're not
water.
getting this water,
No,
man."
that dog's gonna get water before you. But um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a different mindset, different culture over there, and it's just you know the things that we saw there wouldn't fly here, but it was just normal everyday stuff there, and
Yeah,
it was kind of a culture shock. But um, we knew going into it was going to be different than what we experienced. But there's just so many things that you experience over there that are just not anywhere near what you would expect here.
yeah.
So
Were you and your brother stationed on the same operating base, or
no, we were about 80 or 90 miles apart from each other. So we never saw each other once when we got to Afghanistan. Actually, the last time we saw each other was we were in Indiana at Camp Atterbury, doing some training, and my unit was about to leave to go off and we go someplace else, and um, his unit was still there, and me and my guys, we missed our chow time, and I was like, well, screw this, we're gonna get some chow before we leave, and so we went in. It just happened to be the same time that my brother's unit was in there eating, and he calls me over from like across the DFAC, he's like yells at me. And he's like, I forget what it was that he said, but it was something basically putting me down, like get over here, loser. Something I don't know, whatever it was.
I'm sure
And
those were the words he
I'm
used
sure
to
it was.
yeah.
I'm cleaning it up for the
Yep.
podcast. Um, but sat down, ate dinner with him and his guys, and yeah, that was you know just the last time we saw each other before getting over there.
Yeah. Was there any communication? Did you guys have any communication while you were there?
It was indirect communication. Like I would call home, talk to my folks, and they would tell me what was going on with him, and vice versa. He would call home, and they would tell him what was going on with. But we never got a chance to call each other, talk to each other, anything like that, other than maybe a message on Facebook. But computer time was pretty limited, so we didn't really get too many opportunities to do that. But it was really just maybe a comment here or there that we might have left with each other. So really didn't get a chance to talk to him while we were over there.
Okay. 6 months into your deployment.
Yeah.
Um, talk to me about what happened.
Yeah, sure. So, um, my brother's unit was out on patrol. They were going through this village that suspected Taliban activity. Not just suspected; they had taken fire from that village before. They knew there were Taliban folks in there that they were harboring them basically in this village, and they would go there from time to time, and they get in firefights from time to time. And in this particular day, they were walking in. There's kind of like a mountainous area, like near the village that they're going to, and they walked in. And as they're kind of coming around this corner, they got ambushed, and my brother was shot and killed pretty much instantly. Um, it was um, pretty much right at the beginning of that mission that they were on. And guys obviously did what they were supposed to do. All the infantry training kicked in. They did what they're supposed to do, return fire. They got the medic there. They got folks there to try to help him. There really was not much to do to help him at that point. He was like I said, pretty much shot and killed instantly. Um, and so then it became a mission not of like let's go search through this village. It became a recovery mission. They had to, you never leave a fallen soldier behind, right? And so they had to get him out of there. And so I don't know, I don't know about you, but carrying dead weight is not an easy thing to do, especially under fire. And so it's not like just a one man job like you see in the movies. Like I'm just gonna throw you up on my shoulder and we're gonna just walk out of here like it's nothing. They had a bunch of guys basically make a litter and put them on it and try to carry him out. And as they're doing that, again, they're still under fire as they're doing that. And um, at one point, an RPG got shot towards where they were carrying him out. They were trying to basically pick off the easy targets that weren't shooting back. And RPG actually hit one of the guys who was carrying my brother back and killed him as well. So um, so he was killed in the effort of trying to recover my brother. And his name was Tristan Southworth. And our family got to know his family obviously after the fact, but it was just like for those guys, man, could this day get any worse? It's like first we lose one guy, we lose another guy, um, and then they had to figure out a way how the hell we get these two guys out of here and not try to take any more casualties.
Yeah.
So um, such a I obviously I wasn't there for that mission, I wasn't with them, but my heart goes out to those guys who were on that mission with him and the folks who knew him because it was just hell for them that day from the descriptions that I've heard and everything I've heard about that mission. It was just hell. But where I was at that point was my unit also was out on patrol in another village someplace else. We flew out. I'm not honestly. I don't even know. Like I couldn't pick out on a map where we were. I just knew we got on a helicopter and we're going to this place and we got a village. We're gonna go
Right.
root through and try to figure out if there's anything going on there. Um, the bizarre part about it was Partway through the mission, we were told that we need to go secure a landing zone. There's a helicopter coming in, and there's this big clearing at the end of this village. Like we come down a mountain, there's like kind of trails going through this village, and then at the end there's this huge clearing. Um, and so my squad went over, secured the landing zone. Helicopter lands, and an army general gets off, and a few French soldiers get off. And where we were was French controlled territory. So I think they're just kind of just doing an assessment, like what are we doing? How are we doing over here? And I was the highest ranking guy on the ground next to the general. And so I went to go greet the general, and I'm an E5 sergeant, and I'm like crapping my pants because I'm like, don't screw this up, right? So I go over to the general, hey sir, how's it going? What do we? How can we help you? Where do you want to see? Whatever. And I quickly handed him off to my platoon leader because I wanted no part of being involved in any of
Yeah.
that. But but in the meantime, I was kind of just making small talk with him while I was waiting for the platoon leader to come over, and he got a call on the radio informing him of two soldiers who were killed in action earlier that day, not too long before. No names, obviously, over the radio. You don't give names or anything like that. It just said, kind of general information. One was shot, one was hit by an RPG, and that was like the limit of the information. And at the time, I was just like, man, that sucks. Like, you never want to hear of anyone killed in action. So, doesn't matter if you knew them or not. It's just that sucks. And
Yeah.
and so heart went out to those folks, but that was the extent of it. That's all I really knew. Um, and a little while later, I got a call on the radio saying that my commanding officer was looking for me, and I was like, you don't usually jump the chain of command that way. Like, would just go straight from, the captain to the sergeant. Like, there's usually some,
Yeah. You're like, what's going on?
yeah. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, either something really good happened or something really bad happened. And I wasn't getting any medals for for my work that day. I did my job, but nothing spectacular. And so I was like, I must have screwed something up. Something really bad must have happened. So I start checking all my guys' equipment. I'm checking, like, I'm running through everything in my head. What could have gone wrong? I couldn't figure it out. So eventually, I linked up with him, and I'm crapping my pants because I'm like, what screwed up? Like, what is about to drop here? And he goes, yeah, gonna take you off to the side. Take your helmet off and take a knee. I'm like, take your helmet off. We're outside the wire. You don't take your helmet off ever outside the wire. Like that is weird. But I did what he told me to do, and took a knee, and he tells me that my brother's unit was ambushed and that he had been hit. And at that point, it, him being hit to me was just he was injured. That was the extent of it. He was just injured, and um, he was going to be fine because he's my brother. Of course, he's going to be fine.
He was
Um,
Superman.
of course, yeah. I mean, I kind of looked at him like Superman after he joined and everything. Like
Yeah.
he had that kind of persona too, and it was just maybe me protecting myself. But throughout that whole deployment, I never really thought of him dying or being seriously injured. Bumps and bruises. Yeah, sure, that happens to everyone, but nothing serious. I never thought of anything like that. Um, but then my commanding officer, he's like, I don't think you understand. Like, he's been killed, and that was a punch in the gut to me. It just completely took the wind out of me. And most people, like when they have a near death experience, they talk about like when their life flashes before their eyes, like everything in the past, like their whole life from their childhood all the way through. They have that. My life flashed the opposite way. It flashed forward, and I started envisioning life without him, envisioning life with the Christmas without him, with birthdays and other holidays and family events, weddings and things like that, where he just wasn't going to be there. And it was like the saddest thing and I was a complete train wreck at that point. Um, and so I had a couple guys come sit with me because obviously someone who's in that emotional state with a loaded weapon is probably not the best thing to be left alone. So they came and hung out with me and made sure I was good. But about 15 to 20 minutes or so later, after finding out my brother was killed, we started taking fire from the village that we just came out of. And so I had to kind of stuff that grief, that sadness, all the things that were going through my head. I had to stuff that away. And none of that stuff, and not that it didn't matter, but it wasn't as important as making sure that none of my guys got killed, make sure I didn't get killed. Um, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't rage and anger flowing through me where
Yeah.
I wanted nothing more after they started shooting at us. I wanted nothing more than just go and kill everybody in that village. That was the mindset that I had. I wanted, I don't care, man, woman, child. I don't care who they were. I don't care if they were shooting at us or not. I wanted to kill everybody. And I had that moment of like I kind of lost it, and but then I reined myself back in and said, look, if you go and do that, you're dead. There's no way you're making it out of there alive. And then I'm putting my guys at risk too, because they're gonna have to come and drag my body out of there. And we saw what happened with my brother. Someone else got killed, and if that happened to any of my guys because I lost it, that would be such a terrible thing. And so like I gotta get my stuff together and lead my men, and that's what I did. Um, we ended up calling in air support. There's a building off on the side, and it doesn't exist anymore. That air support took it out, and that was the most satisfying feeling when I just saw that thing just crumble and it was just nothing. It's just dust after that, and like I just felt it in a weird way. It just felt good that that thing was gone, and but yeah, after that, they flew me out. After that, the firefight kind of quelled down. They got some helicopters in there, um, flew me out of there, and that started my journey back home, out of Afghanistan. So um, rough time though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got on the helo,
Hmm.
they got you out of there. And when did you find out that you were heading back home to be a part of his memorial service? And um, kind of walk me through what it was like leaving Afghanistan.
Yeah. So that was I found out that I was leaving pretty much right away. My CO basically said, "Yeah, we're gonna get you out of here. It's just a matter of, when the bird can get here." And then we got into that firefight, and that kind of delayed things by
Right.
by a few hours. So, they weren't gonna just come land in the middle of a firefight like that. Like they were, I don't know, they'd
Create more
create more
casualties.
casualties and um, cause even more chaos and everything. So makes sense. Like looking back on it, like yeah, sure, I wanted to get out of there because I wanted to, get home, but I was also glad I was there with my guys during that because God forbid something happened, I wasn't there. I would just look back on it like, man, what if I was there? All those what ifs that we do to ourselves, which aren't helpful, but that would have gone through my head, I'm sure.
And we wonder why every veteran has anxiety.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Um, And so, yeah, got on the bird, flew me to Bagram, met with the brigade leadership. They kind of filled me in on all the details that they had to be able to share. And at that point, I was like, can I, call home? Can I talk to my folks, talk to my wife, anything like that? And they said, nope, no phone calls back home because family hasn't been notified yet. So I was the first one in the family to be notified. But my parents hadn't been notified yet, or at least they didn't know whether or not my parents were notified. And due to the time difference, they weren't able to figure it out. And so, for whatever reason, you'd think in communication age where you can just send a text message and it
Yeah.
goes anywhere, you should be able to figure that out, but they couldn't for whatever reason. And so I
But you
was
would also think that they would want you to be able to tell them as opposed to an army liaison officer.
Yeah, that's a good point, but they probably also wanted someone to be there with them too, a chaplain and those types of things
Yes.
too,
Yeah.
just for that type of support, at least until somebody could be there, family wise. That's my understanding, anyways. Is how they do all that. I've never been a part of any of that, so I don't know for sure, but that's just my understanding of the way that that all works. But um, so, anyways, the next morning there was a ramp ceremony for my brother Stephen and Tristan, um, and I had never been a part of a ramp ceremony before. I had no idea what really to expect, but they brought the transfer cases onto the plane that was going to take them out of Afghanistan, and uh, leadership from all across Bagram came and paid their respects, and not just American troops. Uh, there were Polish and other countries that came by, and even like civilian contractors came by, and it was just tons of people came and just paid their respects, which to me it felt really good, and I was glad I was able to be there as a family member to be a part of that ramp ceremony. But seeing how that many people came out, there's a freaking war going on, and they still took time out of their day to come and pay the respect. So that just meant a lot. Um, but I managed to get on the same flight that he was on to get out of Afghanistan, and so I don't know what strings were pulled or whatever, but I got bumped to the front of the line on all the flights basically. So leaving Afghanistan, I got onto that flight. Um, Unfortunately, probably bumped somebody from that flight who was supposed to be on it, but
But
I'm
you got
sure
to
they
escort your brother home.
I got to escort him out of Kuwait. Um, they did not let me continue with him the whole way for whatever reason, and they said, you're better to your family with your family than. But in my mind, I was like, you never leave a fallen soldier. Like I didn't want to leave him, um, and they assured me that he wasn't going to be left alone at all and everything. So, um, you know, whatever they told me, they convinced me that I should be off on, go with go back home to be with my folks and my wife and my son and everything, and that's where I'd be more useful, not just to me but also to them. So, help keep them from worrying about what was going on with me or whatever. So, um, so yeah, I got to Kuwait, got on the next flight out of Kuwait to come back to the states, and when I landed in Atlanta, anyone who's come through Atlanta on a deployment has probably seen all the supporters with all the American flags and all the signs and all that kind of stuff. I wanted I wanted to just blend in to the crowd and not be welcome. I didn't want anyone to even know I was there. We were ordered to wear our uniform all the way till we got home. I wanted to just go jump into a store, grab some civvies, and ditch the uniform. And I just wanted to blend in to the crowd. I didn't end up doing that because I realized that the bag I was carrying was camo, and I'm gonna stick out anyways. So what's the point? Um, but I wanted to be left alone. I didn't want the welcome home. I didn't feel like I really deserved it at that point. I felt like um, kind of like a kind of a failure, honestly, at that point. Like my little brother, as a big brother, like that's your number one job is to protect your little brother. You know, obviously amongst each other, you're gonna beat each other up, but from outside forces, outside threats or whatever, like hell yeah, I'm gonna get his back.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there for him, and I felt like such a failure. I felt like I didn't deserve any of this, flags or banners or supporters or handshakes or people wanting to buy me a beer or anything like that. Like, why? I failed. I screwed up. Um, and so I was like that pretty much the whole way home. And um, when I got back to Connecticut, went to my parents' house. We had a lot of family and stuff who gathered there, and um, my parents' street was lined with news vans from all the local radio, television, newspapers, all looking to get an interview. And my blood was boiling. I was like, these people are vultures, and there's no way I'm going to talk to these people.
It's righteous anger, man.
It was, I want that same anger that I had. Like, I wanted to just go kill everybody in that village. I almost had that same anger with these people. And there was a army public affairs officer who met us at my parents' house, and he said, "Look, you're completely within your rights to not go talk to these people. You don't have. You can just go inside, and we'll tell them to go away, and they'll go away." And I was like, "Yep, sign me up for that option." He said, but if you do that, they're still going to run the story of my brother's passing, but they're going to get those random sound bites that you get when they just talk to somebody in like a grocery store parking lot or at the school pickup line. Hey, what do you think of, what happened to this local hometown hero? Oh, it's sad. It's, whatever. It's going to be completely soulless, lifeless. It's not going to have any meaning. People are going to forget about it tomorrow. And he said, or you can go talk to him and tell his real story, say who he is.
To truly honor your brother.
And I was like, holy crap. I didn't think I could get a 180 on my mindset on that, but he he completely flipped my mindset on that. And I was like, look, if I don't go and talk to them, um, my parents, me, our family, if we don't go talk to those folks, nobody's going to. And my brother's story is going to be just as dead as he is, and it'll be gone. Nobody will remember him. And so I was like, yep, that's the mission now. I'm going to talk to literally every reporter, every story. I don't care if it's today, tomorrow, next year, 10 years, 15, 20 years. We're sitting here talking about it right now.
Yeah.
I'll do anyone who wants to talk about it, I'll talk about it. Because in my mind, once you stop talking about people, that's when they're truly dead. That's when they're truly gone.
Yeah. I mean, what's the saying? A man dies two deaths,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when he passes away and when his name is spoken for the last time.
Exactly. And so, if I can keep saying Sergeant Stephen DeLuzio over and over, and just keep that piece of him alive, I'll do it, and I'll tell his story. I'll tell to anyone who will listen. And and that's what that day I figured that that's my mission. I have to do that for him. Anyways, I need to keep his memory alive and tell his story as many times as I can to as many people as I can, in as many different ways as I can. And so, that's something I'm real passionate about and love to tell this story. Not because I like the story in any way, shape, or form, because it sucks. It's a terrible story. Um, but I like to be able to share it. Um, keeps my brother's memory alive, but also um, tells other people that like there's real people behind those names that you hear on the news. When you hear about soldiers being killed, at those 13 soldiers who were killed at Abbey Gate, and like those are real people. They had real families, and they had real people who cared about them. Um, and you oftentimes forget about that. Like my mindset when we were in Afghanistan was that nothing bad was going to happen to my brother. And I think the mindset was that that only happens to other people. That doesn't happen to us. And I think a lot of us have that mindset,
Yeah.
but it's not true. And so, if we have that mindset that, hey, tomorrow is not guaranteed. And you look at the people that you care about, that you love, and make the most of the time that you have with them. Because who knows? I mean, you never know what could happen. Um, these unexpected things happen all the time, and so that's part of the reason why I want to be able to tell his story.
Thank you for sharing his story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thanks for allowing me to. This is a great platform, and obviously folks in the military community get it, and being able to share this story just kind of helps reinforce that message I'm trying to get across there.
A big part of the reason that we created this platform, the name kind of says it all, Operation Onward,
Yeah.
is that in transitioning from the military to civilian life, there's a huge gap in the care and the attention and the services that our veteran community gets from the military, from the government, and it's never an easy transition.
Right.
Um, you know, you had lost your brother. Um, Talk to me a bit about your transition out of the service, um, and kind of what that was like.
Yeah. So again, being National Guard, once when you come home, you're pretty much back to civilian life. The 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year kind of thing. Um, as When I first got home, though, I was originally only supposed to be home for like 10 days or 2 weeks, something like that. Um, but at my brother's funeral, the governor of the state of Connecticut, who, for folks aren't familiar with National Guard, the governor and the president are both the commanders in chief of the National Guard, and the governor came to my family and said that she was going to order that I stay home. So whatever orders I had to go back in 2 weeks, she said just throw those out because those don't matter anymore. You're home. And so I did. I stayed home and out processed from active duty and all that, and uh, then went back to regular drill weekends with the guys who were in my unit who didn't get deployed. There were some people who were injured and other things like that. But they still had training that they would do back home, and so I would go to those trainings and really not do a whole lot, in comparison to what I just came from. In that meantime, I had had a knee surgery. My knee was pretty messed up from the deployment, and I was on crutches. I couldn't walk. As a matter of fact, I was going to be on crutches through the end of my enlistment, which was coming up a few months later. And every time I would go into drill, I just feel worthless. Um, and I still had that I'm a failure mindset from what happened with my brother. And then I go into a place where I'm supposed to have some sort of purpose and meaning and everything. I felt worthless. I couldn't do any of the training. I couldn't do anything with these guys. And so I would basically just sit there. Sometimes they'd have some admin paperwork stuff that they'd hand to me and I'd do that. But otherwise I would just sit there while everyone else went off and did whatever training that they were doing. Um, Not only that, my parents, my wife, they every time I put my uniform on, you could see the look on their face, like just worry. Even though it was just, regular training and, we don't not doing anything dangerous really. Like w- I mean, military training could be dangerous and people do get killed in training exercises, but most of what we were doing was like ruck marches and, that kind of thing. And like I'm not gonna die. I might be exhausted, but I'm not gonna die doing those things. But I'd see the look on their face and they just have that like sense of worry, and it killed me every time I put my uniform on that I was doing that to them. Um, Plus my lack of mobility and everything like that. I was like, you know what, I'm done with the army, and I can't really do much else with the army here. And so I looked into it, and there's actually a thing in the army regulations. I don't know what it's called now, but back then it was called surviving sons and daughters, and it basically gives folks like me an opportunity to leave the military early, not under dishonorable conditions or anything. It's an honorable discharge. But basically, because my brother was killed in action, they said, you know what, your family is given enough, and if you want out, you can get out. And so I took that option. And so a few months after getting home, I was out, and I was done. And one night I went to bed still technically a soldier. The next morning, I woke up to a text message from my platoon sergeant saying, "Yeah, paperwork went through. You're out." I'm like, "Holy shit! I'm out. Like I'm done. All I had left to do was just turn in any equipment I had that I still had with me. But other than that, I was done.
So one day you could put on the uniform and the next you couldn't.
Yeah, pretty much. And um, like most people, they talk about going. When they get discharged from the military, they go through all these training classes and talk about all the benefits and things like that that were available to them. Um, I had something kind of similar to that coming off of the active duty, um, but it wasn't really a whole lot of information. It was basically just like, here's the number to the VA, here's some other random information, but it wasn't a ton of information as far as like what benefits were available to me. And I got out really not knowing much about any of the benefits. Um, I was told by one of the I was told by I was told by one of the army doctors um, that the hearing loss and the tinnitus that I had from um, deployment wouldn't be covered by VA disability because he said, "Yep, that's your fault, and they'll never cover it. They don't cover those types of things." So I trusted him. I figured, okay, well. I guess I'm screwed there. I get no, kind of disability. And that was years ago. It wasn't until years later that I heard about a family friend. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he was talking about how he was getting disability for um, for his hearing loss and tinnitus. I was like, I didn't think that was a thing. He's like, oh no, it's a thing, and I get a payment every month, and I was like, I guess I should look into that. And so that's when I first started looking into any of the benefits that were even available to me. I just figured nothing's available to me because I got out early, and this one doctor told me, oh yeah, no, because you know they don't cover hearing loss or something like that. Like whatever crap he came up with was totally wrong. Um, but I just never looked into it. I just never used any of the benefits that were available to me. And turns out there's a whole lot of benefits out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of folks don't know about the benefits. I mean, we know about the VA kind of. We know that it exists. Most veterans know that it exists, but they don't know all the things that the VA has to offer
And
for
so
you.
many veterans are scared to approach the VA
Oh, sure,
because of the horror stories that we've heard about the bureaucracy and
big time.
um,
And I've experienced some of those horror stories myself too. Um, but I've also experienced some of the really good things that they have to offer. There's some good and bad, and I think with anything you're going to get good and bad apples. Um, and sometimes when you just have folks who are dealing with limited resources, they can do the best that they can.
right.
They can't do everything for everybody, and kind of have to give them a little grace there too. But I also found out about all these nonprofits and other organizations that are out there that are super helpful to veterans. They fill in the gaps where the VA isn't able to, uh, you know, do certain things. These organizations, um, they really step up, and the veteran community, man, you got a problem, they will figure it out. They will get the resources to you. If they're not able to, they'll find the people who can. And it's just such an amazing thing that once when I realized that this world existed, I was like, holy crap, there's some people who actually care out there, you know? Um, and but it was hard at first. But before I realized any of this stuff, um, I was dealing with PTSD big time on my own. Um, never never really talked to anyone about it. Just the anger kept building up, and all the symptoms were just getting worse and worse. Drinking was getting worse. Things were not going well. I was definitely not the same person that I was before I left. And my wife is a saint for sticking with me through all of that because I was not an easy person to deal with at that point. Um, but it got so bad at one point, I I realized this is not the type of person I want to be. It's not the type of person I want to be for me, but more importantly, not the type of husband I want to be, not the type of father I want to be. Son, coworker, neighbor, you name it. I don't want to be this angry person who loses it at the minor things. Um, my son he was young. He was born just before I deployed in 2009. We deployed in 2010, so he was just a couple months old when I deployed, and I came home and he would spill things off his high chair or whatever, and I'd just flip out. I'd start screaming. It's like that's not no way for a kid to grow up, having a dad like that. And so I realized just how bad it was getting, and I said, "Look, I obviously am not doing a good job dealing with this on my own. I need to get help." So I reached out to the vet center that was nearby, um, and it was probably one of the scariest phone calls I ever made because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Could have been I could have been walking into a padded room in a straitjacket, and I had no idea what I was going to get myself into. It wasn't that, luckily. It was something way easier. It was just two guys having a conversation, and he really helped me deal with some of the anger issues and some of the things that I was going through at the time. It's not a cure all; it doesn't fix everything. Still, am dealing with some of it, obviously, um, but it got me to the point where I can not be a person where people have to walk on eggshells around. And that's exactly who I was back then. It was just not. Uh, I was just not a good person, back then, and I realized that that needed to change, and that was the first step. I needed to take that first step and recognize that there was problems. I mean, when I first got back from deployment, went through the mandatory mental health screenings and everything. I lied through my teeth. I was like, no, I'm doing fine. No, I'm not drinking. No, I'm not doing it. I'm fine. Um, I definitely wasn't fine. I knew I was lying about all that stuff, but I didn't want to talk to people who I didn't know about any of this stuff. Um, and I figured I'd be able to get through it on my own. I got through however much other stuff in my life on my own. Why couldn't I get through this on my own? Well, it's a hell of a lot harder,
Yeah.
you know?
To, as a message to our audience that might be struggling with PTSD themselves,
Yeah.
um, um, maybe you can speak a bit to. I've heard so many veterans say that talk therapy is just bullshit, and and it seems like that's what they shove us into,
Yeah.
and that's what the VA offers, and that's. But what was the process? And I do realize that PTSD is a struggle daily. It's an ongoing struggle. It doesn't go away,
Hmm.
but we learn how to cope and to exist and to understand.
Yeah.
And maybe you can kind of speak to like your journey. What did you do um,
Yeah.
to deal with that, and what are maybe some resources that are available to our veteran audience that might be dealing with something similar?
Yeah, for sure. So for my journey, it went through that initial round of it was just really just talk therapy. It was nothing, structured or anything. It was basically I just go in once a week and talk with the, the therapist for an hour or whatever, and we kind of just work through things. It took some time though. I think I was talking with him for about a year and a half to maybe 2 years, somewhere around there. Um, so it took a while. It was not a immediate, hey, I'm gonna go walk in and talk to this guy and it's a quick fix just like that. And I think that's something that folks have to realize too, is that, one or two sessions is not going to fix
Right.
hardly anything. That's just maybe getting a baseline, kind of scratching the surface and trying to figure out how do we approach this? That's really what those first couple sessions are. So if that's all you give it is a couple sessions, be like, oh, this didn't work. Well, you know what? You're right. It didn't work because you didn't give it time.
Yeah.
Um, and definitely, def- definitely give it some time. Give it um, a good effort. Um, but there's a lot of options out there too, and maybe a lot of different providers out there too. You might be talking with someone who isn't really great for you, and you're not clicking. They're not really understanding what you're telling them or whatever, and uh, you can ask for a different provider, or maybe the type of therapy that you're going through. There's one type that sounds like torture. It's prolonged exposure therapy, where you basically get exposed to whatever the traumatic incident was over and over again. In my case, it was basically just retelling the story over and over and over again of, finding out about my brother's death and, that whole basically kind of what I just talked about, but in more in depth details and things like that. It was just over and over and over again, week after week, telling it over and over again, multiple times per session, and then in between sessions writing it out, and it's just exposing myself to that over and over again. Other people who uh, flip out at the sound of gunshots, I've heard from other folks who've gone through this. They basically just sit you in a room and they just start popping balloons, and just over and over again until it almost like numbs you to it. Not to the fact that it's existing, but just so you're not overreacting all the time. And so um, that might sound like torture to some people. It sounded like torture to me too. And for some people it might work, some people it might not. But my point is, there's a lot of options out there, and there's also non-traditional forms of therapy. The VA is going to send you through more traditional, um, what do they call it, evidence-based treatment options that uh, work for most people, but you may not be most people, and uh, they're going to want to do that first, But you can also request that you try other types of therapy, ketamine infusions or um, uh, there's a TMS. I forget exactly something magnetic stimulation. I forget exactly what it stands for, but there's that option as well. There's other options that you can go through that are not your traditional talk therapy. Although some of those would be enhanced by also doing the talk therapy route with it. They try to throw the medication at you too, but you can always just say no if that's not something you want. You can say no to that too. But for me, it was just really trying a variety of different treatment options and seeing what works, you know?
So you have a platform today.
Mhm.
There's an amazing platform for the veteran community. It's the Drive On podcast. How many years have you been doing the Drive On podcast now?
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 6 years now. I started it, back in 2019, and I started because some of the guys that we deployed to Afghanistan with, after we came home, they started taking their life, and I was like, "We just came back from a place where people wanted to kill us, and we survived that. And now we're in a place where people want nothing but the best for us, and now we're losing people? Like, that just doesn't make sense." And I I knew the struggles I went through, and I knew that there is hope for people who are struggling. Now, what that hope looks like is gonna vary from person to person. Everyone's gonna have a different path. We were talking different treatment options just a minute ago, and, um, you know, you're gonna go through different paths, and that's fine. But there's hope there, and you don't have to choose uh, that quick way out. And I knew if I kept going down the road I was going on, I might have ended up being one of those people. And then I started seeing these things happen to the guys I was with, and I was hearing about it in the news too, about 22 a day or whatever the number actually is. And I was like, something's got to change. And I wanted to start putting out messages of hope, encouragement, sharing stories from other veterans, sharing resources that maybe folks just don't know about. And I wanted to share all this stuff so that people understood that there is something out there for them that can help them. And if we can keep them around for one more day, one more minute, one more hour, one more whatever, we can make a difference in this community. And so that was what the mission was when I started this. I started it, um, just basically me talking and just sharing resources, sharing ideas, sharing things myself. And I started bringing in some friends, started having them on the podcast, having them share their stories, having them share all their information, and um, it just started gaining traction, and more and more people. Then people started reaching out and asking, "Hey, I'd love to share my story on here. I think this would be a great resource." And um, you know, now it's gotten to the point where part of the trouble is filtering out what resources, what people, what messages are repetitive, what messages, what fresh stuff can we bring to the table here. And um about 500 episodes in now, and so I've done quite a bit of this, and it's something I've been passionate about, which after coming back from Afghanistan is actually kind of a strange thing for me, because there's very few things that I was passionate about before that I still am passionate about. Um, but this is one of those things that I became passionate about afterwards, and continue to, and consistently. I I started the show with one episode a week. Very quickly after maybe a year or so, I started doing 2 episodes a week, um, and I haven't missed a week since of putting out episodes. That kind of commitment takes some time and dedication, and you don't do that unless you're passionate about the thing that you're doing. And so, for me, um, I get messages from folks from time to time saying, "Man, I needed to hear that today." And I don't know if that means that that's the thing that took the gun out of their mouth, or that's the thing that made them put the bottle away, or whatever. I don't know what exactly it was that they needed to hear, but I know I made a difference in that person's life. And I started this thing off with basically the mindset of if I can make a difference in one veteran's life or one veteran's family life and make some sort of change for the better, mission accomplished. Even if it's just one person, all this would have been worth it if even if I can somehow figure out all the statistics and all the data that surrounds us, and after all the time and effort I've put into this, I find out one person has been helped, and that's it. Nobody else has been helped. It's still worth it for me. Um, but I get these messages all the time from folks and saying that they needed to hear this message, and they are so grateful that this resource exists and that we're putting out these messages because I help their friend or their brother or someone, just help just helping people. And um, that's the new mission for me. That's the thing I want to do is just help people, let them know that there's somebody out there who actually gives a damn. And if they don't know who that person is, they can't put a name or a face to that person. Hey, it's me. Like I give a shit about you. Like let's figure something out. And there's so many resources out there that um, we were talking earlier about the VA and people having bad experiences sometimes with the VA. I've had some terrible experiences with the VA. I still stick with the VA because I know that they have a lot of uh, good resources to offer. Um, but if you're like just completely writing them off, there's so many other options out there, and that's what I try to do is highlight some of these organizations and what they do and how they can help people, and um, and just knowing that you don't have to go that traditional VA route just because the psychologist or psychiatrist that you're talking to at the VA says, well, this is the only thing that we offer. Well, that if it's not working for you, it's not working for you. Move on, and it's fine. There's no skin off their back. They got a pretty full plate as it is, and I'm sure they can help somebody else. And you can move on to that other thing that will help you. But the point is to keep moving forward. Don't just quit and say, hey, talk therapy didn't work for me. Nothing will, because it works for however many percentage of people. The majority of people are able to get benefits from these types of therapies that the VA offers. But I'm not getting the benefit, so I guess nothing will. That's a wrong attitude to have. The attitude should be, hey, maybe this didn't work for me, but maybe something else will. And keep just moving forward and try something new. And I guarantee you, if you feel like you've tried everything, you're wrong. There's something else out there. There's always something else. There's just thousands of veteran charities that are out there um, that will help you. And I know a lot of times veterans are like, "Oh, I don't want to be a charity case. I don't want to take something from another veteran who might need it more than me." But man, look at yourself in the mirror, and maybe you are that veteran who needs it more than somebody else. And and don't be too proud to take the help when it's available.
So our presenting sponsor here on Operation Onward is Remedical,
Hmm.
and they've really made this platform possible.
Sure.
With this vision and with this mission, and we share such a similar mission of just creating a resource for veterans who need direction and need to be reminded that they have to fight for themselves, but that there is a community there that wants to accept them. And um, but you also worked with Remedical,
Yeah.
and they are a resource that you used as well. Um, could you tell our audience a bit about your experience with Remedical um, and how they helped you get to where you needed to be?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so we met almost a year ago now at the Military Influencer Conference, and um, you know after finding out what you guys did, started the process. I already had a VA rating, but I kind of suspected that it wasn't what it could be. Um, I had gone through the process on my own, fill out all the paperwork and did all the things all on my own. Um, and like a lot of veterans, I didn't really know what I was doing when I was filling out all this.
No direction.
No direction. I mean, you go on the VA website and they tell you what forms you need to fill out, but they don't tell you all the information that you really need. And I know there's other organizations out there that will help you out with um, with with these ratings. But when I went through re-medical, you guys took care of everything. I mean, to the point where where I had to go onto like the VA website to like upload forms or like download things or whatever I needed to do on the VA's website. You guys would send me an email that had like screenshots of their website and like click here, like with a big circle on the thing, and like click here, download this thing or upload that thing, whatever it was I had to do. You guys like walk through the whole process, and I didn't have to like rediscover how to do all this stuff on my own. And it was such a weight off my shoulders because going through it before, I remember filling out the paperwork, and when I hit submit, I was like, well, here goes nothing. Well, let's see what happens. It's kind of
Fingers
like rolling the
crossed.
dice. Yeah, exactly. You really had no idea what was going on. But with you guys, walk through the whole process with me, and just made sure that all the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted, and that it helped set up appointments with doctors and things like that to um, just to make sure that all the documentation was good to go and as good as it can be for what I was dealing with. And um, I felt super confident when I submitted that the rating that I thought I was supposed to have would be the rating that I would end up getting. And turns out that's exactly what happened. And um, that to me was just like such huge peace of mind. And now from that point going forward, there's that increase in that monthly disability check that comes my way. And so I'm super grateful for all the efforts that you guys put in, and all the coordination, and um, just the ease of use of and peace of mind. It just made life so much easier. And that's the thing to me that sets you guys apart from other organizations where it's like they may just tell you that you are eligible for things, but may not necessarily help with all the other legwork stuff. And that's the thing to me that was really set you guys apart, and made it completely worth uh going with you guys versus anything else that's out there. And I like the fact that there's this option that you know talk therapy, like all the other therapy options. Those things may work for some people, may not work for everybody. And there's options out there for disability benefits as well. And you guys are one of them, and definitely one that I would highly recommend for um, for anyone who's going through the claims process, because there's so much bad information out there. It's really great to have someone who knows what they're doing, does this professionally, and when remedical gave me information, I was confident that it was accurate, and it wasn't like that bullshit information that I got from the army doctor who's like, no, you won't get disability benefits for your hearing or anything like that. Well, turns out he was wrong,
Yeah.
and I did. So um, it's just so much better when you go with someone who knows what they're actually talking about.
Yeah. In in closing, I this is something I ask of every single guest. Um, you've had your experience, you went through your transition, and you fought for yourself to find the help that you needed. Um, so many of our veterans that are going through that experience now, who may be in a dark place,
Mm.
or may just have no clarity on direction. Um, Speaking directly to our audience, would you share some wisdom um, with that audience, and just a word of encouragement? What would you like to say to our veteran audience?
Yeah. So one of the things that you said was I went through this and did this for me, and I think that may not be 100% accurate. Obviously, I did this for me, try to get better for me, but um, I needed something bigger than me as the reason for why I wanted to get better, um, and why I wanted to work towards something better. Um, and that for me was my family, my wife, my kids. I didn't want to be that monster for them. I wanted to be better for them. I didn't want to give up on them. I wanted them to know that they had, uh, love and support and encouragement coming from me, and I had to find that thing that was bigger than me in order to get me through that dark time before I could realize that, hey, maybe I need to do this for me too. But I needed something to help pull me out of that dark time. Um, find your thing. Find whatever that is that will get you out of that dark space in your life. Um, you know, you don't have you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't have that type of relationship with family members. Um, right, get a dog, find something, and it doesn't have to be a interpersonal relationship like that type of thing. It could be you're volunteering somewhere and you're there to help somebody. You're maybe a job that you have that's meaningful and it means something to you. Okay, well, you're getting up in the morning, you're going out and you're helping those people at your job or whatever it is that you need to pull yourself out and say, hey, I can't do this as effectively as I could if my head was right, if all these other things were right. Find that thing for you and just let it help pull you out of whatever that dark place you might be in.
Thank you for thank you for being here today.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing your brother's story, and may his memory live on. Um,
absolutely.
and and thank you for sharing with our veteran audience. Let's go get a beer.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, you bet.